Welcome to the 8th Level Podcast and the Magenta Maze, our newest segment, where we navigate the paths of mediumship, psychic, and spiritual journeys. So grab your metaphysical compass and join me and my co-host Christy for an esoteric discussion that will challenge your perceptions and expand your consciousness. Welcome to the Magenta Maze. Let's begin. All right. So Christy, what is shadow work?
Well, shadow work is working on those parts of yourself that are kept in the shadows. The part of you that you keep hidden from other people and yourself. It's those parts of you that you don't like or that you choose to not see.
I want a question for that. So are you saying that people are not like authentic because they're not being themselves?
No,
I mean,
no,
how would we this? That's the first thing I thought of.
That's a good question. Okay, that's a good question. No, I think people are being authentic, but being human beings, we have this thing called the ego. We want to be accepted and we want to be appreciated and we want to, which is normal. Like everybody wants to be accepted and a part of something and they want to feel good about who they are. And sometimes some people have a hard time feeling good about who they are and where they're at in life. Okay, so there's parts of our personalities or parts of who we are that we don't like very much or that we choose to hide from other people because they're afraid that they're not going to be accepted. Let's see, for example, I
was going to ask for an example.
Well, I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, well, here's just a small example. When I was younger, I didn't like myself very much. So I kind of lied about, like maybe experiences that I had or that I had, this is silly, but I'm just going to be authentic here.
Oh, yeah.
I used to lie about having like maids come and clean our house.
Yeah.
So I used to, tell little white lies about that to try to make myself look good to other people. Like, oh, she's got money. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
We weren't poor by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know why would I lie about it, other than to try to make myself, so I made up these stories. So that's just an example. There's many, many other things that can happen. And it's as to why you would hide things about yourself or deny about yourself. Like I would deny that I lacked self-confidence, right?
Yeah. So when you didn't want to appear like you were rich, but it's not like you were poor, but you weren't poor either having maids.
Well,
so what is the shame in that though?
Right. What is the shadow of that?
The shame or shadow? Is there a shadow to that?
Yeah. The shadow of that is that I felt I had to look as though I were, no, I don't know, I guess better than them. So they would admire me. Does that make sense? Because of the low self-esteem?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So, not sure if it makes sense because were you hiding the fact that you had maids when you were younger?
I was making up the fact that I had maids.
Oh.
I lied about that.
Oh my gosh.
Make myself look better. I know, silly.
That is silly.
So that's just one tiny part. I totally forgot about that. Anyway.
Yeah.
But that's just, it was the first thing I could come up with. So my shadow self is that part of me that I'm ashamed of myself for lying. Why did I have to lie? So the shadow work that we do is going inward and forgiving ourselves for doing things like that, for making mistakes, for feeling that we're not enough, So we do shadow work so that we can heal those parts. And we look into why. So we're looking more into why did I lie
Why did you lie?
in order for people to like me.
So
Does that make sense?
For that example, yes. But do people have other shadow work that they might not have lied? So I guess
Right.
So I guess it's like, to me, when I think about shadow work, when I first heard about it, actually was only a few months ago. I heard about shadow work, probably about 6 months ago, actually. I was in a one-on-one practice circle room with this young man. He was from Australia, and we were supposed to read each other. And then he said something about shadow work. I asked him what that was. And I don't remember what he told me, actually. I think he says, I'm working on myself and my shadow work. And I just kind of let it go because we only had so many minutes in a room to read each other. So that was the first time I've heard of it. And so then now that I know you and I were going to come on this podcast today to talk about it, and in the past couple of months too, I've been looking into shadow work. It seems to appear everywhere now that I'm seeing it. I wonder what the difference is with the examples like I was thinking inner child work. Is that the same?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Is it just another name? Shadow work.
Shadow work is another name for
Inner child.
Inner child. Yeah. Because what we're doing is we're looking back at things that happened to us that made us feel inadequate or less than. So let me give you a definition from Carl Jung. Okay.
Okay.
He's the father of shadow work. Okay. So I'm going to read this paragraph. Okay. So hang with me. The concept of the shadow was first developed by Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Carl Jung. Jung believed that exploring the shadow was essential for personal growth and individual growth, the process of becoming one's authentic self. So the shadow refers to the unconscious part of our psyche that contains our repressed thoughts, feelings, and impulses. It is the side of ourselves that we reject or hide from others, and often from ourselves. However, these repressed aspects of ourselves can still influence our behavior and emotional states. So let me work in why I talked about me lying. Because of my repressed aspect of myself. The repressed aspect of myself is I don't feel good about who I am. I don't think I'm good enough. Okay. So I would lie to make people think that I was better than what I thought I was. Okay. So my shadow, and this is just one part of my shadow. Okay. Or my inner child. So if we look at why I lied for something silly like that, is because in my past, I never felt good enough. I had a upbringing that was not filled with unconditional love. I had a narcissistic parent, and nothing was ever good enough. Nothing I did was ever good enough. And so I thought, so when I go out into the world and I go to school and I meet friends, and I would try to make them think that I'm wonderful and great and that I have money, I would say stupid things like, oh, yes, I grew up with servants. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay. So that's just a small part. So other parts of my shadow are those things that you look at and you look as to why. Why did I do that? And then, mistakes that I may have made or decisions I made that were not good, that were not for the best interest. And it's those things that I hide from myself and the world.
Okay. So let me ask you, being brought up, not in a a good, loving household, like some people are and some people are not. And I totally agree with you with the
Right.
narcissistic parent. Yeah.
Right.
However, what about if you had loving parents in a nice, loving home, like we all dream about a night growing up in a nice, loving home, but you still have some type of shadow work? And to me, to me, I would think of a past life. Could you bring a past life that you did something that you were ashamed of, or you might have had a different situation and not live in a unconditionally loved household? Would you be bringing that into your life today?
Possibly. Sure.
So how would you find out if somebody did that?
I don't delve into that, but if you do believe you had something happened, and I believe it too, then I would get a past life regression.
All
And I've
right.
had a couple past life regressions. I know
Yeah.
I have a good friend who is a past life regressionist, and it really does help.
Yes. Yes.
But, I feel like the work that we do here in this life on ourselves will heal those past lives as well.
How long do you think it takes
How long does it take? A lifetime?
to heal? Seriously? Oh.
Here,
Oh.
okay. So I have worked for many, many years to really get in touch with who I am and what I'm doing on this planet in this form in this lifetime.
When did you realize that you needed to work on yourself? Like around what age group?
It started for me at age 40, in
Okay.
my 40s.
Okay.
I'm
So you're really
58 now. I'll be
okay.
58 on the 29th
Okay.
of June.
Awesome. Well, whoa, your birthday's coming up. Cool.
Yeah. So in my 40s, I had a major, major life crisis. And I just did not want to keep living. I felt I was worthless. I felt my whole life just fell apart. I was left with practically nothing,
Okay.
financially and monetarily,
Mm.
but
Mm-mm.
emotionally as well. I was just wrecked. And I'm not saying you have to get to that point to do shadow work. Everybody's path is different.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I had this major life crisis for me to find my way to where I am now, to do the things that I do now, to help
Mm-hmm.
heal other people. I was institutionalized
Mm-hmm.
voluntarily.
Do you think it was like a mental breakdown then? Was it like you were
Yeah, I
breaking
pretty
down?
much had a
Okay.
mental breakdown. I
Uh-huh.
pretty much had and so I went through with counseling, psychological and counseling.
Yes.
And that helped a lot. That helped get me out of crisis mode and into surviving mode. But I wanted to go from survivor mode to living
Yeah.
life to the fullest. So I had to go a little deeper, which meant shadow work. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm not saying you have to go to a complete breakdown to get to shadow work.
So you had counseling, and then during the counseling session, was the counselor or therapist tell you that you need to have shadow work?
No, I had
Okay.
to figure that out on my own.
Okay. How did you figure that out on your own, though?
I started really once I got stable, and I started going, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I'm like, someone asked me, well, what do you want? What do you want out of life? And I went, wow, it's the first time somebody ever asked me. I was always told what I should do.
Mm-hmm.
I was always told you need to go to college, you need to get a degree, you need to make lots of money, you need to be successful.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that definition of successful came from my parents. It also came from judging myself or comparing myself to others. oh, they're successful because they have lots of money and a big house and a nice car. So they must be happy. So I have to do that to be happy. So when I started going, I had that. I was an
Mhm.
executive manager in the
Mhm.
corporate world. I was in executive management. I was making over 6 figures a year. I was, had this big, beautiful house and a couple kids and a dog and a nice car. And, on the outside, I was successful.
Mhm.
Underneath it all, I was not happy. I was stressed out. I was really just losing my mind. I wasn't happy. So anyway, after I got stable, after my breakdown, I started doing my own research into who I am and what I'm about. What do I believe in? What do I love? What do I want out of life? And so therefore, I started defining what happiness was to me. And the counseling part allowed me to be okay with who I am. And that is shadow work, but it didn't go deep enough for me because I still had triggers. So these triggers, I was always looking for approval and acceptance from somebody I put in authority over me. Oh, this woman's really got it together. I really like who she is. I respect her. I admire her. I think she's great. Then after some time of having a friendship, maybe, a year or two, let's say, for some reason, I started to progress to a level. She saw my success as she was jealous of my success. Okay.
Yeah.
And I
Makes
didn't
sense.
know that. And all of a sudden, she's bad mouthing me, and I feel
Awful.
very stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
Okay. And all of a sudden, she hates me. And I'm
Mm.
like, what in the heck? What just
Right.
happened?
So was that your trigger?
So I was hurt and I wanted to retaliate.
Yeah. Naturally.
So I was triggered by since she all of a sudden didn't like me when I thought she was, that
Yeah.
was my trigger. The
Yeah.
trigger was that she wasn't who I thought she was.
It's almost like she all of a sudden did not approve of you.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Thank
Yeah.
you. So therefore the trigger was, oh my God, it's my mother all over again.
Correct.
And
Right.
I would
Now,
be hurt and angry, and I would beat myself up,
yeah.
like, how stupid. Why didn't you see this? Why didn't you know that she was
r-
doing this? Why did you love her the way you did, as a friendship love? So my ability to feel good about myself was wrapped in partially by this woman who I've thought liked me.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
I think you're almost like emotionally leaning on her at the
Right.
moment, at the time, and then
Yep.
things went sour, and it's like your world fell apart because it was a good friendship you had.
Right.
So then
So
she's not the right person for you. She's not the
right.
right friend. Okay.
Right. So I'm reaching outwardly to feel good about
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And that's what we shouldn't be doing. We should be able to feel good about ourselves simply by being ourselves, not based on who likes me or
Okay.
who appreciates me or who thinks I'm great.
I wonder why people feel that that is an important feature, or I don't know, trick. I don't know how to say this. How do people feel that it affects them, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It
Yeah.
affects them when somebody close to you, or you think you're doing fantastic, and then something like this happens, it affects you. And
Mm-hmm.
so then when you do shadow work, and this should happen again, whether it's a friend or not, but you're having success and this happens again, do you
Right.
think after the shadow work that this will affect you the way it did?
Right. It exactly. It doesn't. It you get better at it. Okay. So
Mhm.
this situation has happened to me multiple times.
Oh
Okay. This isn't a
no.
one and done.
Oh my gosh, Christy.
So you see the pattern. So you're like, okay,
Oh,
All right. Why does this keep happening to me?
okay.
Why do I find somebody that I click with, that I admire, that I appreciate, and then all of a sudden, for some unknown reason that I can't figure out, they
Mm-hmm.
don't like me anymore? Well, there
Okay.
must be something wrong with me,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
beat yourself up and you're like, God, you're so stupid, you're so gullible. Um, but what you need to do is do some shadow work. Figure out why you keep being so attached to someone that if they suddenly stop liking you, now you're not worthwhile.
Right.
That's the shadow work. So this happened once. And have you ever had something like, why does that person so mean to me? Why don't they like me? And right, you've questioned, have you ever had that happen to you, Lourdes?
No, but
No.
somebody in my family, no, not like that. Seriously.
Wow.
But I have somebody in my family
Uh-huh.
that it happens to all the time. And I
Hmm.
feel so bad for her because I know she questions herself and
Right.
she's very young. She's a teenager, especially
Yeah.
when they're teenagers, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
really bad.
I
So
never
I
want to
tried to
be a
talk to
teenager.
her. I tried to talk to her and like, hey, don't let these people's thoughts affect who you are, blah, blah, blah. But it happens. Um, I did have to let go of a friend who wasn't really like that to me, but
Hmm.
it just a long friendship that just went stale and it just I just had to move on and let that 25-year-old friendship go. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so when it happens like that and it happens continuously and then is it like a lesson for you to learn? Is it that you pick
Yes.
out these friends or are these people picking you? I mean, what's going on?
Well,
How is this
it's really
happening?
it's happening because of what we see as a failure in ourselves.
Okay, but how
So
can that be a failure of yourself if somebody's treating you bad?
because your self-esteem is wrapped up in who likes you, who is your friend, who, you know what I mean? So
Mm,
my self-esteem was wrapped up in what other people thought of me.
okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Other people's love for me.
Mm,
Um, Now, if you haven't had that experience, that's, good for you.
mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people who look, okay, especially empaths who didn't receive that unconditional love from parents or that self-esteem. They never built their own self-esteem.
Okay, I can relate to
Well,
that self-esteem
okay.
part. And then I can also, when you said, oh, it never happened to me, what I do know that happened to me is at work.
Okay.
So I don't form good friendships, but I have coworkers that I feel like I'm seeking approval from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, which sucks because then I just distance myself from them.
Yeah.
And I really want to form a friendship, but I feel like I'm already being judged at work.
Uh-huh.
So I don't, I, I just kind of become a loner.
Right. And that's not a lot of fun.
No, it isn't.
Here's the thing is what we have to do is go, I'm okay. I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
Um, my problem, okay, so let's use coworkers. I always befriended anybody and everybody I could.
Hmm.
I wanted to be friends with everybody.
Yep.
It was a need that I had to feel good about myself. So if I have lots of people that like me, I'm okay. I'm a worthwhile person. See what I'm saying? I hang too much of my own
Mm,
self-worth in how many people like me,
okay.
or I did.
Hmm.
And so at work, I wanted people to like me. Um,
I'm laughing because when you said how
yeah,
many people like you, and I just thought of like Facebook likes, and today in social media, it's like, how many followers do I have? How many
right.
likes? And then they have their
That
self-worth that way. But back then we didn't have that. So I understand.
that
That's
is
all.
exactly what it is. And that is the premise that Facebook put that
Yeah,
together
right.
because people would get these likes on their posts and
Yep,
they'd feel good about themselves. Oh,
right,
I'm awesome. Look how many likes I got. Oh, look how
right.
awesome I am. I have 5,000 followers,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
Now, so that's exactly the psychology of it.
Got it.
So what we
Mm-hmm.
have to do is go back and look, why do I need that? Because I don't like myself very much. I don't know how to like myself because of whatever, my own psychology, my own traumas, my own emotional baggage. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So shadow work is looking at that. Why do I need that? Why why do I keep doing it over and over again? Well, because each time it's a lesson and you get better and better at it, especially if you're doing shadow work. Okay, so many years ago, if this happened to me, where a friend of mine all of a sudden started not liking me or started talking behind my back or saying bad things about me, and I find out about it, it would hurt. It would destroy me.
Oh
I
man.
would go for months upset and sad and beating myself up.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'd get better. But I didn't do shadow work. And it would happen again.
Wow.
And oh my God. But it didn't take quite as long to get through it. But now, okay, so this happened to me a couple, I don't know, about a year or so ago. This happened to me. The same thing. I shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
So when this happened, I went, okay, this really hurts. I mean, it does. It hurts when somebody that you
Yes.
love all of a sudden is not who you thought they were, as far
Yeah.
as your relationship was concerned, your friendship was concerned. And I went, wow, ouch. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
cried.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? So it took me a day, maybe a day and a half to go, okay, you know,
Yeah.
this is her problem,
Yes.
not
Yes.
mine.
Correct.
My self-worth is not completely entangled in who likes me because I like who I am now. I'm not perfect, but my heart is in the right place always, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what?
And
You
yeah,
know what this reminds me of is how it only took you a day or so. It almost feels like coping skills that
yes,
as children or when we were kids, I had the same problem. I have the same problem where we were not taught coping skills. So when we have lowest self-esteem and somebody hurts us, it hurts us for a long time, or it may
yep,
carry into adulthood, right?
yep,
And so now is shadow work more like learning about coping skills?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
And it's more than just coping skills. It's really getting to the root of the problem,
Mm.
right? Because you can be mindful and you can cope,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to do more than cope.
What do you want to do, Christy?
I want to be able to have somebody be able to come at me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, maybe they're angry at me. Maybe they're upset with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be able to remain calm and see it as for what it is. This person is having an issue.
Correct.
Something something they think something I did
Yeah.
by breathing has
Mhm.
upset them. That's
Yep.
not my fault.
Yes.
And
You're
I can
so
look at this
right.
person with compassion.
That's the hard part.
It is. It is. But if you do shadow work and you start to understand exactly who you are, because, your first instinct is to get defensive when someone
Correct.
comes at you, right?
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
you're, you know,
Yeah. Retaliate. Be defensive. And you may
right.
say something you might not want to, you may regret later.
And people also, they misunderstand um my intentions.
Yeah.
And you look at it and I go, okay, this person is upset at me because they think I was doing something to hurt them. I know I wasn't doing anything to hurt them. And I go, okay, that
Mhm.
I'd look at the situation and I f- I don't beat myself up. I say, okay, I can see how they might think that I was doing something to hurt them. I
Okay.
look at it from their perspective
Right.
instead of taking it in like I screwed up. I did something wrong. I'm a bad person because I know I'm not. I've done the shadow work. I know I'm not a bad person.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep.
And from their perspective, everybody has their own perspective. From their perspective, they think I did something to hurt them. Well, that's their perspective.
Yeah.
They get to have their own perspective. You see what I'm saying? I'm
I
not
do.
responsible for their perspective. I'm only
Correct.
responsible for what I do.
Yes.
And if I've done something wrong, I'll own up to it and go, oh crap, I really screwed up. Okay. But I don't beat myself up.
Yeah, I agree.
I go, oh, I screwed up. Okay. Can I fix it? All right. I'll do what I can to fix it and move from there. Well, I can't fix this. I screwed that up. Damn. Okay. Note to self, don't do that again and move forward. Don't stay in that spot of angry at yourself for screwing up or
Right.
making a mistake. Don't take it as a personal that you are a bad person or beat yourself up because you're not. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to love yourself unconditionally. So it's like when you have a child, you love that child unconditionally.
Right.
Most people,
Yeah.
unless you're a narcissist. But um and that's a whole nother show, by the way,
Yeah.
raised by a
Oh
narcissist.
gosh.
But
Oh my goodness.
anyway,
Yes.
um, for me, I loved my child unconditionally. I would
Yeah.
die for my child, right?
Yep.
Somebody asked me, well, if your child killed somebody, would you still love them? Absolutely, I would. It
Yeah.
would hurt. It would hurt. I would, my kids would never do that, but I would still love them.
Right.
They would need to go to jail and atone for, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I would still love them. And
Yep.
that's how we have to love ourselves. And we talk about the inner child. So we need to go back and love that inner child, give that inner child the unconditional love that they needed, that they didn't get back then, and heal those wounds.
I agree. So,
And that's shadow work.
yeah. Um, so do you think, we're kind of getting up to time. Do you
Okay.
think you can provide 2 or 3 tips for people that need shadow work or don't feel good about themselves? What can they do today to help that?
Mm. One is to write down everything you're grateful for.
Okay.
Having a positive mindset about where you're at right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude journal. That's a great way to start. Grounding. One of the biggest problems that most people have is they're not living in the here and now. They're worried about the past, or they're upset about some of the past things they've done. They're focusing on the negative stuff that has happened, or they're worried or anxious about what's going to happen in the future. So we need to be grounded, meaning we need to be right here, right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another part. Live right now.
Yeah.
Choose to be happy. Let go of past pain.
Forgive yourself.
Forgive yourself
Mm-hmm.
for making mistakes.
Yeah.
Because that's how we learn. Okay. And a lot of people go, I've been through so much trauma, and they can't let go of it. They're still in victim mentality.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who are in survivor mentality. Well, I went through that, but they're not fully living yet. Okay. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes good sense.
Yeah. So really, you have to connect with your higher self. When you start to understand that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, there's more than just this. We're here to have experiences, good, bad, or indifferent. So when you can connect to your higher self, forgive yourself, be kind to yourself, and stop reaching out for your own self-worth. Look within. Find your self-worth within.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Yep. So yeah, I think the good start is to be grateful. Be grateful for what you have today, right now.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Maybe
cool.
start to look at some of the mistakes that you made or the traumas that you've had as learning lessons.
Learning lessons, that's right.
And forgive.
Yeah. Forgive them and you or
Yep.
yourself, everybody that was involved, right?
Absolutely.
And just let it go, like that song, Let It Go.
And a lot of that is easier said than done, but it can be
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. So you help people with this, right?
Yes.
Okay. You want to tell our listeners about that?
Oh, sure. I do offer spiritual counseling sessions, virtually or in person. And I usually like to do a one session at first to get to know what's going on. And then we can break down a plan. It's usually broken down in 6 weeks packages. So where we meet once a week for 6 weeks. And I use the shadow work journal, and we talk about all of that stuff. And I help them. I teach them how to ground, and I teach them how to connect to their higher selves. And we analyze and heal their inner child.
Nice. So if our listeners need help with shadow work, contact Christy, send us your comments, and one of us will get back to you about that. If you need any clarifications on shadow work, which is really like an inner child work too, right?
Yes. Yep. Same
Okay.
thing.
Perfect. All right.
Yep. Yep. There's lots of
Well,
books out there about it too.
is there? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Christy, this has been another day of crazy talk, and shadow work is crazy talk sometimes. Because you know what? There's some people that I know that needs this,
Yeah.
but they have no clue. You can tell they're hiding behind something. You can tell they're fearful of something.
Yep.
So what was I going to say? It had something to do with work, like micromanagers, okay?
Oh
Is
my
a
gosh.
perfect
Yes.
example
That is a perfect example.
that needs shadow work, and yet they don't recognize it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Micromanagers are usually narcissists, though.
Correct. That's all I
And
can
a
think of. They need
narcissist,
shadow work.
that's a whole nother
Oh,
show, Lourdes.
maybe we should talk about that in the future.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun, and we'll talk again. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and please share this episode with your friends. Please subscribe, rate, and review this episode. And as always, the show notes will be available at 8thlevelpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.